Hello everybody and welcome to another Dwarf Fortress tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be covering how to make wells, 4 different techniques, as well as some tips and tricks around these 4 different techniques of making 4 different types of wells. We're going to be covering the materials required for a well and how to construct them, how to make a well on the edge of water, buckets, pumps, and with an aquifer. And also, all of these different sections of the video are time-stamped down beneath, so if you would like to just simply jump to a specific spot and learn that particular technique, links are in the description. Let's dive in. So now that we're in game, you can clearly see that there is a big open space of grass right here, and we're going to construct a couple of workshops to construct all of the materials that we need to build a well. The first thing we're going to need is a mechanics workshop. Now, a mechanics workshop can be constructed out of whatever material you like and uses boulders and turns them into mechanisms. So we're going to open up the building screen, we're going to go to workshops, we're going to click on workshops, and we're going to grab the mechanics workshop, which can either be selected by hitting H on the keyboard or simply clicking it. You are then going to place the mechanics workshop wherever you see fit, and then choose your material of choice. The second thing we are going to need to build a well is we are going to need a stoneworker's shop. Now, once again, a stoneworker's shop can be made out of any material you like and can be selected by hitting T on the keyboard in the workshop screen. We're then going to place this workshop and select our material of choice to make the workshop out of. We are going to need a woodworker's shop, or carpentry shops to be specific. Now, this is going to be used to make a bucket. Wood is not the only material you can use to make a bucket. You can also use metal, but for this video, we're going to be using a woodworker's shop. And once again, we select the material of our choice. Once those 3 workshops have been constructed, we need to make ourselves a clother's workshop. This can be found in the clothing and leather section of the workshop menu. This is going to be used to make a rope. Once that has been placed, just like the other workshops, we're going to open up the mechanics screen, and we are going to queue up some rock mechanisms. From there, we're going to open up the stoneworker's screen, and we're going to queue up some rock blocks. And then lastly, we are going to open up our clother's shop and carpenter's shops and queue up a bucket and a cloth rope. And then once that gets queued up, we can see that the dwarves are building all of the materials we need for our well. This brings us to the start of the first type of well, a surface well. This is just any water that you find that isn't salty, of course, assuming it's not on an ocean, so like this puddle or this river here can have a well built on it. So we're going to go hit B on the keyboard or click the build screen. We're going to open up machines and fluids, and we are going to go to well. You might be wondering, what exactly is a well used for? A well is a space for dwarves to get water. Dwarves do not drink water and do not want to drink water. They should be drinking alcohol. However, if there is no alcohol available, they will drink water on a whim. They get really upset if you make them drink water straight out of a puddle and prefer to drink it out of a well if they absolutely need to. Wells are also very important for hospitals, as they are how dwarves gain water to clean wounds with. So any injured dwarf is going to need access to a well or some sort of water source. And if it's in a well, it'll be a better water source than if it's just pulled directly out of the river. So we're going to place this well down on the ground. We're going to use sandstone blocks. We're going to use an almond bucket, and we're going to use a pigtail rope. And we're going to use a chalk mechanism. This is then going to construct this well. And then what we're going to do, once we've built the well, is we're going to hit Z on the keyboard as the well's building. We're going to select the water source tool, and we're going to drag a water source around this well. As you can see, some of this water source is over top of this river, meaning they will actually use this river as well, which we don't want. So we can either build floors, or I can remove those squares from the water source, allowing for us to have a well that is operational that dwarves have access to. The second type of well is something that you can use underground quite easily if you're somewhere that doesn't have an aquifer. So we're going to use this area by our little farm here. Now, the way this type of well works is quite simple. You just need to dig out a little bit of space. Once you have some space dug out, then what you're going to do is you are going to channel 1 layer down. This removes the floor as well as the blocks under the floor. This is what I call a bucket well. This is not the most optimal type of well and not generally what I would recommend you build. However, it's good to know how to make different types of wells for your future prosperity in Dwarf Fortress. Now, we have this hole in the ground, which is quite useful, and we are going to hit Z on the keyboard. We're then going to go to Pit and Pond over here on the left. Once I've selected Pit and Pond, we are then going to drag that little zone right over top of the hole. We're then going to click Accept. Then here we're going to see two options. We can set it as a pit, or we can set it as a pond. We can also tell them to throw animals in there. It's a very good way to throw things you don't like into a volcano. But we're going to set it as a pond. Now that it's set as a pond, any dwarf that is available is going to go grab a bucket and fill the pond. So our metal crafter here is doing the task. Since the well is at 6 of 7, we'll just call it full. Now what we can do is we can click on the pit pond zone and just set it to be a pit so the dwarves stop dumping buckets of water into it, and then simply go to the machines and fluids section once again, select the well, and then place it over top of the hole. Once again, we're going to use blocks, buckets, and a rope, and our mechanisms. And then the dwarves are going to construct it. This will work pretty effectively. However, keep in mind it will dry up and will need to be refilled, which means you'll have to kind of keep an eye on the well itself. Also, if your surface water freezes in the winter, or if you have to deal with a very long siege, you may run out of water. Meaning, while this is one of the simpler ways of making a well, and safer than leaving it outside, it's not the most practical. So let's dive into something a little bit more complicated that's also much more effective. So now we are looking for an aquifer, so that we can make a aquifer well. Now, aquifers scare a lot of people away. However, they are one of the most efficient ways to find a well. As you can see, we've dug right up to the edge of an aquifer here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to force the dwarves to keep digging. Now, there's several different ways we could do this. We could dig down from the surface into the aquifer, or we could just dig sideways into the wall and let the dwarves do their work and push away the aquifer. As the dwarves continue to dig into the aquifer, we're going to slowly start to see water dripping down from the ceiling. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wall off the side so that there's a little bit of space for the dwarves to, get themselves stuck underground inevitably, so we'll have to dig them out. Look at you, Geshud. Very intelligent. Now that we've saved the dwarf and sealed off that final spot, it's a little bit sticky looking, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go one layer above, and we're going to dig up to where the aquifer is from one layer above. So the dwarves are going to dig all the way over. Then what you're going to do once they've dug over is you're going to dig a hole down into the area. This will slowly fill up. It'll take a little bit, but give it half a season or so. If you accidentally leave any rocks or boulders in with the water, an easy way to fix this is simply click on the little invisibility tool and then remove it. You don't need to see it there. And this will slowly fill up. It'll take a little bit of time because this is only a light aquifer. But once you've done that, just simply proceed as normal. Grab the Machines and Fluids tab and place your well on top of it, using the same materials as previous. Then what's going to happen is the dwarves are going to come over, construct your well, and then as this fills up, once it hits about, I think it's 3 of 5 it needs to be full, it will be considered a functional well, and the dwarves will be able to get water from it. Unlike surface well designs, this will not freeze and will be infinite. One of the most important reasons to settle on an aquifer, if you ask me. And now we enter into the final type of well. This is going to be filling up a well using a pump system. Now, this is going to be a little bit trickier than the previous ones we've done, but I should be able to give you a setup that should be quite simple. Now, to make a pump, you're going to need a pipe section and an enormous corkscrew. There's multiple different materials you can make these out of, but for this video, we're just going to be using wood. So the first thing we're going to need to do, now that the pump pieces are constructed, is we're going to need to select where the pump is going to go. It needs 2 open spaces to be constructed, so we're going to pump from here in the water down this way. So as you can see, there is some space, and we're going to channel down. Now, we are then going to wait for the dwarves to dig this out, and then go inside of here, and then dig one over, and then down again. So our well is going to end up going right here. And it shouldn't take too long to fill. But we're going to have to be a little bit careful on the actual digging of it because we may end up flooding things if I don't do this safely. So instead of doing it so close to the edge here, let's actually move it a little bit further this way to give us a little bit more leeway time. Now, underneath here, this zone is going to need to be dug out so that we can actually get the water to where we need it to be. So we're going to fill up this little space down here. And also, for fanciness sake, we can make the reservoir a little bigger by going down an extra layer. And now that the reservoir is dug out, we're going to go one layer above, and we are going to channel in this upper layer. Now, the last step for this rather precarious setup is we're going to need to set up our pump. We're going to go to the Machines and Fluids section in the build screen, click on the pump, and we want it to pump from the left to the right. So if you look at these little arrows here on the pump itself, you can see that it goes from the left to the right. We are then going to place it right next to the river. We're going to use our pieces, the pipe section and the corkscrew, as well as a single block to build this. Now, something you should know about pumps, the front piece right here on the right, where the water comes out of, acts as a wall. So if I take a wall tool and I build a wall around the front of the pump, it will be treated as a wall, thus not allowing any water to escape backwards and wash your dwarf back into the creek. I see some people being very scared of using pumps for this kind of reason, and I just want you to know that if you just simply build around the front like this, it'll be quite safe for the dwarf to operate the pump, and you will not need to worry about the dwarf drowning. Of course, you could use machines for this, but that's a little bit complicated for this video. We have our reservoir, and we have our pump. We're going to click on the pump, and we're going to pump manually. We're going to allow a dwarf to begin pumping. And we're going to feather the pause button here. As you can see, Inod here has claimed the pump and has begun pumping. It's going to pump quite quickly, so we're going to need to be quite careful with this. Here comes the water. It fills up the reservoir, and just like that, we're going to go up to the dwarf, and we're going to tell the dwarf to stop pumping. The reservoir fills up. We have a good amount of water in there, and now we can build our well. There is one final reason why you should use pumps to make your wells like this, instead of using an aquifer, is if you have salt water and you want clean water, this is the only way to purify salt water in Dwarf Fortress, meaning you will not get any, salt in your water and be able to drink it and use it for wet wounds if it's an ocean. So if you're settled on an ocean, you need to know this setup. Granted, most ocean embarks also come with an aquifer, so you also have the option to make aquifer wells. Now that the well is being constructed, I hope that you found this video informative or entertaining, or at the very least, a little bit interesting. If you would like to see more tutorials, check out my channel on YouTube, or alternatively, the KitFox channel on YouTube, where these videos are being dual posted. I just wanted to say thank you very much to everybody for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.